I am a writer of things. I think most of you know who I am. I think I know most of you guys by now. You're all Red Wings fans. You're all from Michigan, except those of you who aren't. You late comers, we spent an hour getting to know each other. We did some trust exercises. Some of us walked across poles, some of us did. We all have our own journey. I like to kind of throw these things over to you guys when I do these things because I'm super boring and don't like to do this out of my own voice, and I'd rather hear yours. So I'd like to get your questions out of the way. I am going to answer some questions that I often get, just to get them out of the way. It's like a speed round. You actually already asked one, well, kind of. Like, everyone always like, what's Jared and Jensen and Alicia and Mark are like? And they're like, they're awesome, they're lovely, they smell like all like baby Jesus. They actually no, Alicia smells like kid feet and breakfast cereal. This is a weird way of saying like kitty litter and milk. But he's delightful. They're all delightful human beings. They're all great guys to work with. I was never pranked on set. Everyone always asks if I was pranked on set. I got pranked with the crew. Does a thing on the text account where they order a bunch of food, and they ordered me like I ordered like a chicken sandwich, and they ordered like 17 of them, so they arrived like 17 chicken sandwiches and like 600 pounds of broccoli, which was my side. And I tried really hard because I wanted to like not be the dumbass writer who couldn't finish his meal. And then I didn't realize it was a joke. I was like, it's good. All right. I'm getting like meat sweats. That was the only prank. I don't have a favorite character on the show. I used to always jokingly say my favorite character was the Impala, but I guess that's kind of true now. I wrote an episode this year that was all about basically that character, and now I can kind of feel like that's an honest answer instead of a bullshit one. I will play favorites. She's my favorite. You can tell Jared. No, don't tell her. Just tell him I said hi. What else can I tell you? What are the other questions? I don't have a favorite episode that I've written. I have ones that I love more than others. I usually look at my stuff and I'm really critical of it. So I see all the mistakes that I made. But I can tell you without a doubt that the one I had the most fun writing, like just fun, was that episode 1104 this year, Baby. It was just a joy to write for those guys, those two actors. It was to be able to write longer scenes, that were, I think I called it the sleepover scene. It was 7 pages long. I think the original cut of it was about 6.5. We trimmed the little things out of it. It's one of the longest scenes I've done in anything. Because usually network TV, it's very, like 2.5 minutes. Like, there's a thing, go get it. Drama, and then you're out. But this was like actually letting the guys be the guys and kind of to explore those characters a little bit. Are you recording? Hi. Who are we recording for? Is this the internet?
The DPN family, offshoot of Wayward Daughters, that couldn't make it.
Oh, right on. Hi, Wayward Daughters. Hashtag.
Absolutely.
What's your Wayward? Is that right?
Yes.
Did I get close?
Yes.
Or is that what it is?
It's hashtag Wayward Daughters.
Oh, okay, hashtag Wayward Daughters. I thought there was a different one yesterday.
Yeah, what's your Wayward? Right.
Yeah, what's your Wayward? Yeah, it was
okay. What's your Wayward?
Yeah.
Okay. I clearly don't know why. Well, hi guys. And hi everybody else. So I'm just going to throw it to you guys. I'm going to preface one thing. Please have 2 questions prepared because there's a good chance I might say no comment or I might say no spoilers. And I always hate when I come to these things and some guys up here or some ladies up here they won't answer my questions. But there are certain things that I can't answer out of respect to contractual obligations, but also like spoilers and whatnot. So have a backup just in case I'm like, no? Question mark? But otherwise, fire away. This is a safe place. Let's all trust one another and get through this together. So just let's have at it. Anybody? Nobody. You can go to the mic or you can just raise your hands. It's all good. Yes, young lady. Was there any person that inspired me to write Charlie? This is going to sound really weird, but it was actually Russell Crowe. But not really. No, very often times when you pitch an episode, you're asked to kind of like, what's it kind of like movie-wise? And early on, I knew that was going to be an episode that was going to have to carry, the guest star was going to have to carry a lot of water because Jared was about to have his first kid, and so we needed to make sure that it was okay for him to obviously be there for the birth of his child, which is a really, really hugely important thing, and he's a wonderful guy. So I started pitching ideas about like a whistleblower story, and the movie that popped to mind was The Insider, starring Russell Crowe. So he was like a whistleblower originally inside Dick Roman's empire. And that kind of evolved from there. So it's weird, yeah, technically speaking, I guess it's Russell Crowe, but no one specifically, and that's a character that like I did like a big backstory for, and we didn't know that she would be for more than one episode, but Felicia came in and just did a phenomenal job. And we actually hadn't met at that point, and it's interesting. Like I wrote like a big backstory, a lot of which we ended up doing subsequent episodes, including stuff about her mom and the fact that she wasn't really, Charlie Bradbury, but Felicia, just being a great actor, she kind of intuited a lot of it and kind of internalized a lot of it, and she made a lot of choices that once we met, I was like, did you do this because of that? Because did you read my mind? Get out of my mind. I wouldn't say it's necessarily anybody specifically. I know some people think she's based on me, but she's not. She's actually smart and capable. I am neither of those things. If you asked me to hack somebody, I'd be like, and then I would say, I'm in, because that's what they always say. We're in. I'm like, no, you're not. You're in a van. But no, there wasn't anyone in specifically. I will say that once we cast her, I rewrote the script a little bit, and Sarah as well, because we knew we had an actor that could really carry more water in scenes and like go toe to toe with the guys more. And then I definitely reacted when we brought her back, just from when I saw her in the dailies, just because she was making really smart choices and adding a lot of history to the character that, or things that were funny were funnier, or things that weren't funny were funny, or things that were supposed to be funny were actually poignant. Like, she just made a lot of great choices, so I definitely reacted a lot to her. So I think ultimately the inspiration of the character is her performance. So yeah, and Russell Crowe. When in doubt, go to Russell Crowe. I mean, I loved him as Jor-El. Was there someone behind you that had a question? Anybody? Was it? Hi, how are you? I'm Robbie, nice to meet you. Was it? CJ, nice to meet you. You said, do I have any advice to young aspiring writers to have scripts that have, I'm using your words, vitality? That's a very kind thing for you to say, I appreciate that. I think the most important thing to do is read, and don't just read scripts. I think scripts are painfully boring. I try to make them as entertaining to read as possible, but they're just horribly boring. Interior, I'm already asleep. I can't do it. I would just say try to read as much as possible. You're writing in a medium that is never going to be read, so that's really a challenge to make it well written. But it's important to communicate your ideas and to always remember that the story that you're telling is ultimately visual. A lot of times I'll read scripts from young writers which will be like, she thought about this. And it's like, that's a great direction as long as there's a line that led up to it, Otherwise, I can't shoot someone thinking. Like, what does that look like? However, if there's a good line that's setting up like a question or something like that, that's a way to create a pause in a scene to let the actor know, like, oh no, I want you to really contemplate that. But a lot of times, like, there'll be a lot of backstory, like she thought about her childhood and this and that. And that's great in a novel. It's really wonderful in a novel. I could never write a novel. There's way too many words. But in a script, it's always trying to remember, like, what's the direction that you're giving to both the director and the actor, and ultimately the reader. Who the first reader is not going to be a director or an actor when you're starting out. It's an agent or a manager, preferably a manager. And those are people that are just trying to see if you can communicate a story that's both has some of that vitality that you're talking about and passion. So I like to try to keep it as simple as possible, but also as direct as possible. There's a prose style I think that you see in a lot of more traditional journalism that I think is actually a little bit more appropriate. It's a little bit more rat-a-tat-tat, kind of gets to it. But it's okay to have some flair. Ultimately what they're looking for is, do you have a voice, do you have something to say? And I think, sometimes it's a question of just finding just the right amount of zhuzh in those descriptions, I think I had a description in one, I had a description of actually Charlie's apartment, I think at one point, that was very specific, and like the props department asked me for photos for reference, and I realized I didn't do my job. I should have actually really described what it looked like. I was using shorthand. But then there's other pieces of shorthand that you can use that will really communicate to the reader, this is what your point of view is as a person, as a writer, but also what your point of view is for those characters. So I would just say keep it simple as possible, but don't be afraid to play around. So many scripts I read, even the ones that end up being great, movies or TV shows, they're so painfully boring when you actually read them. But when you read the dialogue and little pieces of the description, you see that this is a person who has a voice and a point of view, and that it's a story worth telling visually. Who's next? What's up?
How far in advance do you write?
How far do I advance do I write? You mean in terms of comic books? Well, with TV, you know, like for example, I wrote an episode that aired 2 weeks ago, and I wrote that back in January. So it's months and months in advance because, you know, in TV there's 300 collaborators that all literally have to be on the same page, and that page is yours as a writer. So it's like, type like the wind. In comic books, it varies, and sometimes I'll write out of order in comics to, if we have different artists coming in. Like I just, on one series I wrote 11 and then 9 and 10, because we had an artist that was available that we all really wanted to work with. But with comics, it's usually at least, you know, we kind of take them in 6-issue chunks. I sort of pitch like, here's the next 6 issues. And then we're like, yeah, cool, go write those. And then I'll get notes on those as we go. But I try not to get too far advanced because I think you kind of want to see, in terms of collaboration, you want to see what people are also bringing to it, and you don't want to be too locked in. I mean, I work in a lot of different mediums, and the thing that all of them have in common is collaboration, which is, to me, the most fun. And so you want to leave yourself as much time to collaborate with other people so you get great ideas. I'm working with this Irish artist, Nate, who's fantastic on Spidey now, and I was like, hey, if you have any ideas, let me know. And he had a great idea that we're going to do in issue 10 of Spidey that just came from a conversation that we had. I think it's the most important advice I can give to a writer is just to listen to your collaborators, because if you're open to it, the story is more important than you know just being right in that situation or just having the idea first. So yeah, it varies, but you know, with TV, I'm on a strict schedule, you know, based on my boss's schedule. So it's 2 to 3 months in advance at least. And with comics, it can be up to a half a year in advance because we work really far ahead to compensate for how much time it takes to write or to draw. It's really easy for me to write interior library, and then like, you know, the poor artist is like, oh, those books. I gotta draw all those books. I hate you so much, Robbie Thompson. Let me draw all these books. How about interior your mind and it's exploding? So yeah, it varies. It varies. Rabbit Ears, what's up?
Do you ship SDL?
Do I ship SDL? Does everyone here know what shipping is?
Yes.
Does everyone here know what shipping SDL means?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any shippers? It's a safe place. It's all good. It's all love here, people. It's all good. I'm looking over at Dean and Cass. And they're like, well, actually, now that you ask. Their costumes are amazing, by the way. You guys should all make sure you check them out. They're really, really fantastic. I gotta be honest with you, and this is just me talking as a fan. I'm not a big shipper in general. You know, I think it's wonderful that people see whatever they see in anything I've written or the things that have been written. And I 100% support any and all interpretations. I think it's pretty clear from some of the stuff I've written either online or in my work that I think the author is dead. And I think ultimately the last draft of the screenplay is yours. But you know, it's funny, I was hanging out with Curtis Armstrong the other day, and I said, I think the last thing I actually really officially shipped in my mind was probably Herbert Viola and Mr. Pesto on Moonlighting, which was him and oh, what's her name? I can't remember the actress's name, it's terrible. But I myself, I'm not much of a shipper, I have to be honest with you. I mean, I guess I'm trying to think of what other things. I mean, you know, I guess technically speaking, in Empire, Han and Luke, I'm old, so it's like all old shit, you know what I mean? There's none of the new stuff, you know what I mean? But I also understand what it means for people, and I understand what it means for them in terms of seeing themselves in media and seeing representation in media, and I think that's an important conversation to have. You know, but that's just me talking as a fan, you know what I mean? As a fan, it's just like, you know, for me, I'm like, I was talking about I was talking about with Lost, like, you know, people were like, you know, like, who will Kate wind up with? And I'm like, what about the Dharma Initiative? What about the Smoke Monster? You know, I guess, like, you know, it's not to say that I don't like romantic, you know, storylines or interpretations of storylines. It's just not like necessarily the first thing that I'm looking for, you know, as a viewer, as a fan. But as a writer, I think anytime anybody takes your work and interprets it and makes it their own, or sees them, more importantly, sees themselves in it, I think that's an enormous compliment, and I think it's fantastic and wonderful. Nobody needs my permission, but I always try to tell people, remind them they don't, and ship whatever you want. God bless, you know, and make your fan art, make your fan fiction. I'd like to get rid of the word fan fiction because I think it's said sometimes in a way that's dismissive. I think if you're a writer, you are writing, and if you are written, you are a writer. So I don't care. To me, it's just a genre within, you know. I write sci-fi shit, and like, that's fine. I've never written any fan fiction myself, and I've never read any. I mean, I technically, I guess, read Transformer books, if you consider like Wicked and things like that, fan fiction, which it is. And I guess you could say I wrote a Wizard of Oz episode, which is technically transformative fiction as well. So I guess technically I have. I just lied to you. But no, it's a great question, and I appreciate you asking. I didn't see, did your hand go up? Do you ship? Are you a shipper? Okay. Well, thank you. Your name's not Rabbit Ears. I didn't hear your name. Sam? That's a good name, Sam. Yeah.
I think you're on your episodes of Supernatural. I think they're like probably my favorite ones.
Thank you.
But what do you do when you have a writer's block?
I didn't hear the last part. All I heard was like loving like nice things, and I appreciate that. Should we stop there?
Yeah, you have a writer's block.
Oh, what happens when I have writer's block? I just get another job. I have like 4 jobs. I'm not a big believer in writer's block. I'm a big believer in I don't want to work. There's so many things to do, like, you know, like there's social media, and there's video games, and reading books, and going to see movies, and spending time with my wife, and she's a writer as well. And, you know, I don't necessarily believe in it for me. I think it's just a question of, oh, I didn't want to like put on my pants that day and actually do the job. Although I guess I technically don't have to wear pants for my job. I'm learning a lot today about myself. These are good questions. But for me, that's why I like having a lot of different things to work on. Like if I'm stuck on something, or usually it's like I just don't want to work the problem, I work on a different thing, and then I go back, and usually I'm refreshed. And I'm a big believer, and I know it sounds cheesy, but like I'll go to sleep with a problem, and I'll wake up with a solution. And it's not necessarily that I believe that like my dream solved it, but like my mind does work sometimes while I sleep. And then there's always like the shower solution where you're taking a shower and like, oh fuck, why didn't I have this idea 10 minutes ago? I had a pen, was it wet? You're like writing in soap. I just try to keep working. And I think when I've had just like the one job, like if it's like, oh, I have to write this script, you know, in Supernatural, sometimes you had 5 days to write a script, sometimes you had 2 weeks. You know, when you had the Vancouver that eats 42 pages every 8 days, and if you do not feed that monster, you will fire it. And I like eating food and buying comic books, and so I wanted to keep my job. I just kind of keep working the problem, and I try to be really honest with myself. Am I stuck, or am I just being me, which means being lazy? So yeah, I try to take more jobs. It's easier to avoid responsibility that way, which is weird. Who's next? Yes. What's your character? I can't see. Who you dressed as?
I'm dressed as like Cecil from Night Vale.
Awesome. Awesome.
In your opinion, how do you think Supernatural should end?
In my opinion, how do I think Supernatural should end? That's a great question. Obviously in outer space. I don't think I can really answer that question and be fair to the show. I no longer work on Supernatural, and I certainly had opinions on how it would or could or should end. Which I didn't certainly express, and I know there are ideas how it would and could and should end. But my answer, I will answer your question, sort of. My dream, like I'm speaking as a fan, not as a former. Can I say that now? Former writer of the show. My dream is that Jared Jensen and Eric Kripke and Sarah and Jeremy and everybody else goes up to where we shoot what we call the process car, which is the Impala, but it's just on a stage, and just have a conversation. Just a conversation about the show. They don't have to break the episode or anything like that, but I would just love for them all to have, you know, a conversation about it, about how it should end, so that literally everybody's like, you know, excited about it and all that good stuff. But there's some reason I would just love to have it be there. You know what I mean? Like, you know, with baby, like as if she could like say something. I just think that would be a cool thing, and would be like a cool special feature on the DVD, like that, whatever that conversation is. I think that would be cool. But how it should specifically end, I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that without giving privileged information. I hope it never ends. I don't think it's gonna ever end. It's halfway to Gunsmoke. Let's go all the way. Right? Yes. Sure.
So, fan fiction maybe ultimately different, unique types are like I was wondering how.
So the question was fan fiction and Baby were 2 very different episodes, and the question was how do I come up with that stuff? Well, you know, honestly, my inspiration for that kind of stuff is the show. I mean, the show, when I got onto the show, I was on season 7, and a lot of my favorite episodes were like kind of the weirder, different episodes. Like Mystery Spot is my favorite one, and obviously Changing Channels is a ton of fun. These are all just Richard Spade ones. And so honestly, my inspiration for it was the show. I love the fact that the show has this great history of taking really big swings. You know, like the French Mistake is a crazy idea for an episode. And I like being scared as a writer. I like, you know, like when it wasn't my idea to do a musical episode, actually. Jeremy and Bob were like, let's do a musical, and it'll be in a high school. And I was like, that's terrible. Can I write it? I mean, the only thing I added on was that I wanted it to be in an all-girls school. Because I felt like in previous episodes when it seemed like, especially conventions, it was all bros. And if you've ever been to a supernatural convention, that stuff was so yeah. So I honestly, the inspiration is the show itself. Yes, sir.
Okay, Robbie, a few questions.
Yeah, bring it.
Okay. Can you talk about working with James Marsters and Charisma Carpenter on that one episode? That's
I actually did not work with James and Charisma, okay. And I there was like a full year where I tried to bring those guys back because I just wanted to write with them. Because I'm a big Buffy fan, but I was thrilled that they were on the show because those are both two terrific actors. And yeah, I did try to bring those characters back because I was desperate to just write dialogue for them. Because I'm a fan.
And okay, how much of actually, it'll be two questions, it's twofold. How much of a debt does Supernatural owe Buffy? And what would happen if Sam and Dean met Buffy and Angel? Would it be one of those things where they couldn't get along because they're so much alike, or they would just really kick ass and take names?
So the first part was how much does Supernatural owe to Buffy? I think everybody owes something to Buffy. You know, Buffy came on TV when there wasn't a lot of stuff like that. And I think it was you know, the combination of that and Xena that really kind of showed people that genre entertainment was what it always was. Like, we go back to like the original Star Trek, which is these are yes, big idea shows that have fantastic monsters and all that shit, but like ultimately they're about us. So yeah, I can speak for Kripke. I don't know if that was a direct influence. I know that X-Files was, but I think it's definitely an influence on pretty much any network